All right, man. Well, you've been tweeting up a storm. You had a big announcement yesterday, I
Yeah.
believe. Catch us up.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. This is fun. I don't think I've ever done anything like this, so this is
We
pretty.
hadn't done it until this
Yeah,
time either.
this is super unique. Yeah, it's been awesome. Like Breakpoint. I think this has been my favorite Breakpoint. I think like this conference area has been like perfect for a conference like this. The weather's nice. Yeah, especially coming from New York, it's really cold right now. So
I think even just we were mentioning, kind of comparing it to the Breakpoint last year, where last year we walked in and we were like, just meme coins everywhere, right?
oh yeah,
Meme coiners everywhere. We're like,
yeah,
I mean, it's what the chain felt like at the time, but
yeah.
that felt tangible at Breakpoint. And this year it feels much more maybe serious or ambitious in a meaningful way.
100%. Yeah. I remember there was some backlash last year because there was like some meme coin dances thing that happened on stage, and like a bunch of DeFi founders like, what are we doing?
Right.
Yeah, this one's complete 180. This one's like, oh, here's like BlackRock giving a
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, if I think crypto's figured out pretty recently that finance is like the number one use case, and so most of finance is pretty serious. People's retirement is on the line. So, yeah, I'm glad to see that evolution here as well.
I mean, give us the description of what Project Zero is for people who maybe don't know, and then we'd love you to step that into some of the big announcements you made this week.
Yeah, so Project Zero is like the largest DeFi native prime broker in crypto right now. We got 300 million in our systems. We launched in September, so we're relatively new, but we've grown by like 20 million a month normalized for crypto prices today. That was about 1 million of inflows per day before we had the 50% hit that we just recently took. And that's limited with only 2 venues live. Like the whole point of a prime broker is to have a bunch of venues live and to have this like unified cross margin account. We've just started with Camino and Project Zero and 3 venues on 3 markets on Camino. So we've intentionally like limited our rollout just to focus in on like our early users. But we're about to go live with Drift. We're about to go live with Jupiter Lend, and then we'll also start adding like derivatives like Jupiter Perps, for example, or Exponent interest rate products, RateX, etc., and open up this basis trade as well. So like the big unlock is that for the first time ever in crypto, in a generalized sense, you can pick and choose. You can go to like Camino through P0, and you can be like, okay, I like the USDC rate in Camino's or USDS rate in Camino's Maple market. I'm going to deposit and earn that Camino native yield. But then there's a borrow opportunity on P0, maybe at maybe Camino market's at like 7%, P0's at borrow at 5%. And now I can borrow against that Camino position on Project Zero, I can capture that 2% delta, and then I could lever that up and get a lot more. And so a lot of people are running these for the first time, generalized, unopinionated, multi-venue carry trades and rate trades right now. And that's the unlock. And then, yeah, we really are excited to open up the basis trade as well with like perps to spot, which would be like a good example would be, short the perp on Jupiter, capture the funding arb, and then maybe long the spot on like Camino in the spot in their lending market and lever up that basis. Yeah.
So it's kind of being like the aggregator of DeFi, the big opportunity here.
So yeah, the aggregator term is like an interesting one because like when we think of aggregators, we think of like Jupiter and DFlow and Titan. I need to always say all 3 or else I'm like
someone's gonna hate you.
Favoritism. Yeah. Love all of them. So that's what people think of when they say aggregators, right? And there's no back end to that, meaning like there's no underlying liquidity, like they're routing to like wherever the best liquidity is. There is a back end to P0. Like we have our own credit market, and that's how we extend this unified margin across multiple venues. So like the P0 credit market has like $250 million of liquidity in it. And so it's much like if we were just a lending aggregator, life would be a lot simpler, honestly. Like we could just build a really awesome React Native app and show everyone all these yields and let them deposit into it. But we would lose the ability to then say, okay, you deposited into Jupiter Lend. but you want to borrow on like Camino, that's now not possible. It's possible with Project Zero. Yeah.
Right. So I know like all the tweets are talking about your announcement of a token coming, but I think I've seen a tweet from you as well. It said, "Hey, like, cool, yes, we're stoked about that, but there's these other two really interesting products that we were announced." So one is called Pay, the other is called Brutus. I'm wondering if you can introduce those to us.
Yeah, I think the Pay product is pretty cool. So when you guys think of Pay products, I'm sure you think of like this crypto credit card and maybe this like crypto checking account and maybe this like specific DeFi or like off-chain program you can hold your funds in. This is none of that. We've taken a completely different approach to our Pay product. So in real life, most people, at least certainly me, I'm sure like you guys and most people here, we like our Amex points, our Visa points. We don't want to get a new card. We also don't want to get a new bank account. We also don't want to like give up the crypto exposure that we want. We also don't want to give up the yield in the crypto exposure that we want. And finally, we also don't want to move that crypto exposure to a new app just to be able to pay for a coffee on chain. So with those like 5 constraints in mind, it solves all 5 essentially. So what it does is like given this new prime brokerage infrastructure we built out, you can now have funds in any sort of integrated venue we have on Project Zero. You can be earning that yield. You can keep that exposure if that's like in Bitcoin or Solana. You don't need to liquidate that at all. You don't need a new card. This account connects to whatever existing card you're using, debit, credit, whatever. You don't need a new bank account. And all it does is you connect this to the account you want that's paying your bills. And then at the end of the month, it takes a stablecoin borrow against that exposure to pay off your bills. So it's just like this connective tissue, this connective infrastructure that's like has a lot of automations around it. And then you can pay that back whenever you want, right? There's also no term to that borrow now because it's like a DeFi native borrow. So that's pretty cool, I think. I don't know anyone who's doing that, but also any other people can't do that because you have to put in the work and build out this prime brokerage infrastructure. So we're leaning into that. So that went up live for early signups. That's gonna go live the start of the new year. So I'm very excited. I think that's super cool. That's our Pay product. And then the Brutus product is, so one of the biggest like things you need to solve for when you're building a prime brokerage is the risk engine, essentially. And the status quo today in DeFi are these static risk parameters that appear on chain. So when you think of like Aave, for example, they have set LTVs, they have a set interest rate curve, they have set deposit caps, etc. And whenever these update, it's like a governance vote. And like we've also seen, the market moves extremely fast in crypto. And sometimes, even with Aave, as incredible as that product is and as stress tested as that product is, and this is like a fine approach for Aave, but this is something different that we're going to be doing from Aave is, something happens in the market and they put up a governance vote and like they'll finally be able to change the risk parameters like a month later after, it doesn't even matter anymore. So what Aave has to do is they just have to be overly conservative all the time. And that does degrade UX. Now at the scale Aave is at, I get it. That's completely fine. We're not at Aave scale. We're much smaller than Aave. So we announced Brutus. Brutus is powering our on-chain static risk parameters right now. So all the LTVs, all the interest rate parameters, all the caps, any sort of risk parameter you see on-chain right now is powered by Brutus. But next year we will make that real-time dynamic, meaning that like if liquidity starts to dry up for an asset that we have listed with like collateral weight, deposit caps are going to come down, LTVs are going to come down in real time in response to market conditions, which provides a safer, smarter experience to the user. And then Brutus V2 will go live once we go live with the derivative side, like perps and interest rate derivatives that will also happen next year. Because when you go live with derivatives, all of a sudden you can have really complex exposures. You can have like offsetting exposure. You could be like delta neutral, for example. You bring in like Greeks. And so the risk engine needs to really level up. And that will be included in Brutus V2. And it'll also have that dynamic experience, that dynamic real-time experience. So that is like critical. That's at the heart of our risk management, the financial quantitative side of the business. And us being able to really refine that and make that super sophisticated actually lets us move faster on assets. It lets us give the user a better experience. Like potentially there's more leverage on the table available. Maybe there's less leverage available on the table, we can react more quickly. And then every time that, especially as we like further decentralize, every time that risk parameters need to change to market conditions, we don't need to do this 10-step governance vote and surface it on chain a week later after it might already be too late, right? We can just react real time.
Right. So what is behind that? Because we have human beings that are and in discussions, and part of the whole governance process is the debate and sort of moving it forward. So what is actually happening under the hood there?
So under the hood, it's a huge like quantitative endeavor. It's a huge like empirical endeavor. Quantitative on the side of like running a bunch of like simulations, having explicit formulas for the risk parameters that you have that you're surfacing, and then certain things also need a lot of empirical data, like for example how the market reacts to certain interest rates and certain market conditions. If you think like utilization is too high, for example. So it's a ton of market data feeding into these financial formulas, essentially these quantitative formulas, much of which aren't super sophisticated, much of which can't be super sophisticated because we don't have enough market data yet. Like some of these crypto assets are like a month old, right? So you can't run like the top of the line risk simulation on this asset when it's a month old. That's just a futile endeavor. But that's going to increasingly become more transparent. So people are going to see what these formulas are, what's defining the risk parameters on chain. We're going to have like a bunch more public data coming out next year in coordination with Brutus. And then it actually becomes much more predictable to the person using Project Zero. Like, okay, I see market liquidity drying up for this particular asset. I can run my own simulations that model the simulations like Brutus is running. I can also look for holes in the way like Project Zero is running these sims, doing this risk management to make sure that there's nothing we're missing, and that becomes the like human to like code interaction instead of like, hey, here's my system, here's your system. I think LTV should be here. You think LTV should be there. Like, let's just surface it all, make it open source. And make like a truly robust like system.
Yeah. Should we talk about the token? Yeah, I think two of the big conversations we've had this week are when is the right time to launch a token, which people differ wildly on, and also like the big question of what makes tokens valuable.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in, ultimately how you think about both, but maybe first, like why do you guys now feel ready to launch a token?
Yeah. So when we were building this primitive, we actually like from day one, like the minute we launched it, we're like, okay, here's our requirements, what we want to see before a token is like comes on the table, essentially. And the things we wanted to see was that we wanted majority market share of credit venues on Solana. We wanted our pay product to go live. We wanted our strategies product to go live, and we wanted to be like staring down the barrel of derivatives. But we didn't want to have derivatives live yet because I am very convinced that with derivatives and with that basis trade, there's a ton of room for growth, and I'd much rather have that like in front of a token event than behind it. So that was our requirements from like day one, and so we're kind of looking ahead. We're about to get there. Like Camino is live in production, Drift is done. Drift's going to go live in January. Jupiter Lend has started. It's going to go live first half of Q1. The pay product was announced here. It's going live started January, and the strategies product went live a month ago, and that's a really cool product. That's a product where people in one click are running these multi-venue carry trades that are now finally possible through Project Zero. And the cool thing about these carry trades is that you can run these for like weeks and months, and the average retail participant, it's not like performing an atomic arb on chain where it's only available to like really sophisticated players, because you need a lot of liquidity to move rates, and because like rates are always changing in response to a set of market conditions. A lot of these carry trades, I use the strategies page myself. They remain open for weeks. I've had strategies page arbs open for months. And so this is super cool. We made this available to retail, and this will also start to follow and give retail like really cool functionality heading more into like our derivative product functionality. But that's a long answer as to why okay, I think like token as a concept is now ready after we get those things live, and then we're staring down the
Right.
barrel at perps and interest rate derivatives.
So early signs of product market fit,
Yeah.
conviction in the path forward.
Yeah.
And the token can kind of be a part of this growth motion ahead of derivatives coming.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense. So how are you thinking about the token kind of fitting into the Project Zero
Yeah.
ecosystem?
So we're doing some cool things with the token. One thing that like you guys can have a exclusive on that has not been announced is so everyone does this token with like a Cayman like foundation ownerless thing where it's like, what the hell is this? And then everyone, you go on Twitter and everyone's like, the token has no real rights, and I see a lot of merit to that argument, right? Our token is going to be an American Duna. It's going to have like a real constitution behind it from day one. Token holders are going to be able to vote to amend the constitution. It's going to have like explicit properties, it like incorporated in America essentially, through the Duna Act in Wyoming. So this has started to surface. This has not really been tried, to my knowledge, for any sort of like DeFi team. But it's definitely a step up in terms of just before anything else, before any sort of like complex mechanism design or thinking about any sort of attributes around the token, just like actually making the token worthwhile in the first place. So that's where we're starting. So very excited about that. And then, post that, we definitely have like a bunch of really important ideas in terms of like integrating this token into the program, the reason for this token to exist, et cetera, et cetera. That's best done in like a series of like blog posts and also in coordination with the community. So like I'll be very vocal about that in Q1 as we get closer and closer to that event, and there'll be a lot of like written stuff about that. There will be a lot of like verbal stuff about that. But the big variable right from the get-go is that like this is not just going to be some weird offshore ownerless token with like nothing behind it, essentially. Yeah.
So I think you mentioned earlier sort of the as we continue to decentralize, tell me about the importance of holding that ideological stance in your product vision and how you're approaching the market.
Yeah, so we're building an open source program that anyone can see our code, anyone can audit our liquidity, anyone can see our risk parameters on chain. It's this fundamentally different approach to the way things have been built before, and much like you see with L1s, that invites people to come in, build stuff on top of it, push the network forward. Like we have, Jump announced, Firedancer was live on mainnet. That type of thing doesn't really happen if you have like this closed source company, right? There's no incentive for outsiders to come in and make things better. I want an incentive for outsiders to come in and make things better. Like this is still small fish, small pond, essentially. There's massive prime brokers in traditional finance. There's big prime brokers in crypto too. Like Galaxy's a big one. Falcon X is a big one. Two examples. And I want them to work with us. Like I don't want them to be adversarial to us. And so putting it all out there and having like this shared ownership structure enables that. It enables for guys with, off-chain, embedded relationships and deals that is basically impossible to like realistically bring on chain to now plug into this to use shared liquidity instead of like PvP liquidity. So like as an example, if Falcon X put $10 million into this, Galaxy could then use that to the benefit of Falcon X, which would never happen in traditional finance. So that's fundamentally the approach we're taking. If we decided to take a different approach, I would have built like a vertical app from day one. I wouldn't have made it open source, and I would have decided to start going after the end user and building these like exclusive relationships. But there's a reason Solana's working. I want to see that more with DeFi. There's a reason like Aave's working, for example, as well. And I want to bring that sort of to DeFi on Solana. and with this model. Yeah.
Your pay product feels like it's sort of like the odd one out
Yeah.
here in a certain way.
Yeah, it
like
is.
so, and maybe like a very consumer focused
Yes.
play, even though you're talking about institutions as part of the cohort. Or
Yes.
so help me sort of square those
Yeah.
two.
So I look at application building on top of this like open source program as expanding the TAM, as just opening up new markets that weren't previously in touch with the program. And so Pay does that. Pay is something where you don't need to care what a prime broker is at all. You don't need to be using DeFi like a crazy power user. You could just like really love Jupiter and also have some funds in Camino, and then boom, you benefit from the Pay product. And so it's very much just like increasing TAM, showing people that you can build like anything on top of this. It's got really unique functionality. And so I especially, we have a world-class application team at Project Zero. And so as we continue to add features to the program, I definitely want new apps to come in and just reach entirely new markets that like we haven't thought of before. There's actually, and this is working. Like we have 20 over 20 independent teams plugged into Project Zero today already, doing a host of different things. Like not all of them are DeFi teams. So I want to see more and more of this. That just basically is expanding the TAM. I don't want people to know they're interacting with P0 at all. You know.
So is it more dog fooding? Is this just an infatuation you've had yourself? Like, do you see this as sort of a part of the same business or something? Like, do we end up in this place where this is sort of like the front end that you guys go build separately, and the protocol is something different than that?
Yeah. There's a host of front ends built on top of P0. Again, like those 20 plus teams, most of them have front ends. I think all. So there's 20 plus front ends built on P0 right now, and they all do not do the same things, you know. So
I love the smile that comes across his face as this is happening.
I mean, what's like a weirder example of something you hope can eventually be built on top of Project Zero?
Well, right now it's the low-hanging fruit. Right now it's okay. I want to earn some DeFi yield, but I'm in like this market and don't really have time to be, you know, using a DeFi wallet all day. We do have like very complex financial primitives also plugging into us. So we have across the 20 teams, I think those are like the two ends of the spectrum currently, like very sophisticated DeFi utilizing like idle liquidity into P0 or using some sort of cross-margining function in P0 to just a simplified app where a person doesn't have like a phantom wallet, for example, and they just want some access to DeFi yields. That's where we're starting. I see the most use case for that. I do want to like focus in on the financial side to start. Like I don't see, you know, if you're building an NFT application, there's probably better ways to spend your time, unless they're thinking of something I'm not. So I want to stick in that niche early on.
Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, is there even a comp in the traditional world to how you're thinking about this? Like, I think you call it a prime brokerage, but it's much more of a prime brokerage protocol.
Yeah.
Than anything.
Right.
So, like,
right.
Does something like this even exist in TradFi, or is this kind of a net new, you know,
Well,
DeFi opportunity?
As this exists, very plainly, it's definitely net new. Like the other net new thing here is that everyday people have not had access to this connected infrastructure ever. Like prime brokerages in TradFi are only hedge fund tools and ultra high net worth client tools. So that's already different, which is super cool. But then on top of that, it's usually in traditional finance, it's, you know, it's Morgan Stanley or it's Goldman Sachs that is working with clients who have their money in a bunch of different accounts with like different exposures, sometimes across different countries. And they're giving them credit lines, you know, and they're acting as this very centralized intermediary. And they have to, because that's sort of how traditional finance has evolved. DeFi is just fundamentally different, you know, like it would be as if the, you know, the exchange in Hong Kong, the exchange in like Chicago, and the exchange in like here in the Middle East was all open source and composable to anyone, which is just not the case, right? But in DeFi, it is the case. Yeah.
It just sounds absurd in the traditional world.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, you've been very generous with your time here. We're excited to chat with you again as you start to dive into some of the more articulation of the plans. Obviously, Josh and I are just deeply infatuated with how smart people like you are thinking about how a token sort of fits into this new type of thing. And I think it's still a blue ocean out there that leaves a lot of room for some creative thinking and for some principled, clear, articulate strategies. It seems like you're very well positioned to do that. So we're excited to chat with you again. But thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure, man.
All right, brother. Enjoy the festivities.
Awesome. Will do.
Metaplex. This clip brought to you by Metaplex. Launch tokens and NFTs on Solana and the SVM.